I've been making cinematic bikepacking adventure films for YouTube for 5 years now. I've been all over the world, and a video that has been requested time and time again is how do I actually film those adventures? I pride myself on making the absolute best quality films for YouTube that I can, and I don't have a camera crew, it is just me, and I carry all of the filming stuff that I need, so the camera, the drone, the tripod, microphones, everything that you can think of with me on the bike, as well as all of my bikepacking equipment for my adventure. Apart from the odd time where you've seen my dad come with me on my bikepacking trips, all of the footage that you've seen has been shot by me, and over many years of trial and error, I've got the equipment dialed down and how to pack it perfectly to a T. Let's look at the filming equipment that I use, and after that I'll show you how I pack it into my setup. For my main camera I use a Sony FX3 full frame mirrorless camera with a Sony 20-70mm f4 lens. It's definitely overkill, but like I said, I want to make the best quality possible. For my audio I use a Rode Video Mic Pro Plus that sits on top of the camera, as well as some variable ND filters to make sure I get the shutter speed just right. All of that sits on my Peak Design travel tripod. I got the aluminium version because the carbon fiber one was just so expensive, but I really like this tripod. It's super sturdy and packs down small. I also carry 2 spare batteries if I'm doing a long tour, which further adds to the weight. For my drone, I use a DJI Mavic 3, which I've used for a couple of years now. I also have the Fly More combo here, so I carry a couple of spare batteries here as well, which you definitely need if you're planning on doing lots of filming. The quality of this drone is just insane. I absolutely love it. I use a few action cameras. I've been using a GoPro Hero 11 for a while now. The quality is pretty good and it is really robust. More recently, I've been using a selection of Insta360 cameras, from the Ultra to the Go 3S, which I use for more interesting B-roll because of their size. And I'm a massive fan of this X5 360 camera. It shoots in 8K. I'm always in the frame, so it's ideal when I'm wanting to do vlogs. I pair it with this Preview remote with mic, meaning I've always got a lav mic on me. It wirelessly connects to the camera, and with a press of a button, I can control it. Meaning I've always got good audio quality, and I'm always in the shot because the camera is 360. Right, so how do I pack all of that? As you can imagine, it's a lot of stuff, and that high quality camera gear is heavy as well as bulky. So it does make it a bit of a challenge when I go bikepacking. The heaviness and the bulkiness combined with bikepacking just doesn't really mix 9 times out of 10. But I have found a way of making it work, and it is this. It's using this, the MTX trunk bag from Topeak. I've been using this for 10 years, and it is an ideal solution for carrying filming equipment because it's basically one big bag that's split into compartments. You have the top box here, and then 2 panniers that fold out towards the side. And in that, I can put all of my filming equipment, pretty much everything apart from the action cameras, obviously, which stay at the front of the bike, can fit in there. And it's also quick release, so there's a button to slide the whole thing off, which is ideal if you are stopping at a hotel or you want to quickly take your filming equipment off the bike because you can't bring it with you, for example. It's a really good solution for that. So what goes in the top box? We'll start with that first. It's pretty much this camera and everything associated to it. So the cinema camera, the microphone that sits on top, spare batteries, ND filters, and spare lenses if I'm going to bring them. I tend not to take spare lenses most of the time, but if I am going somewhere where it's especially dark, or I'm wanting to capture a star lapse, for example, or the Northern Lights like I did in Norway, then I take a Samyang lens with a wide aperture to capture that. But 9 times out of 10, I'll just use this Sony 20-70mm lens. Moving on to the side pannier, this one above the derailleur is where I store my drone, and that's pretty much all I can fit in here because it is such a big drone. I carry spare batteries for that as well as the remote, of course. So in there it tends just to be the drone, but I do have a little bit of space at the top or the bottom where I tend to just stuff a waterproof in. What about the tripod? This is the biggest pain point for people wanting to make content while they're out cycling. Because tripods are either really bulky or really long, or if you go for a really cheap one, really flimsy, which means it can break when you're out actually on your adventure, so not ideal, there isn't an obvious place for you to store it. However, with the trunk bag, I have got the perfect setup. All I do is collapse the tripod, slot it on top of the trunk bag in this bungee cord, and then just tighten the bungee cord, and at the end of the tripod I just hook it over and tighten it again, and I have never once had that tripod come out. And bearing in mind I've done tens of thousands of miles now making these bikepacking films, it obviously works. It's ideal for me. I feel like I'm singing the praises of this bag a lot. I promise you I'm not sponsored by Topeak, I just really like this bag. I'll quickly show you the front of the bike. Now, because these cameras are waterproof, I just leave them on the bike throughout the day. But if I am staying in a hotel as before, I will just use a quick release on this. It's just one button, I can pop that off. I can equally move it anywhere I want on my body, for example, because I've got different mounts. And with the Insta360, it's just a few turns, I can take that off and put that in my bag as well. So that's all my filming gear, but how do I actually use it and set it up while I'm out on my bikepacking trips? Let me show you by doing a little film and talking you through the sort of shots that I get. In my films, I basically get 4 different types of shots: macro, medium, micro, and person. For macro, it's basically giving the audience the big picture of where you are, and for this, I often use a drone, but you can also use a wide-angled lens. For medium shots, it's basically stuff that you'd see while riding pretty easily without having to look, or things you'd notice if you just stopped for a drink. And the micro shots are, as it sounds, things you have to focus on really hard, and things you probably wouldn't notice unless you were actually looking for them. I really like these shots, and for me, they're often things like flowers, nature, or if you're really lucky, some wildlife. And finally, the person shot, which is basically me. I want to capture the emotion of the day. If I'm doing a really tough ride or riding through horrible weather, I want to make sure my audience can feel that with me. But equally, if I'm having a really peaceful time, enjoying my own thoughts, I want the audience to be able to feel that too. If you combine this with talking to camera, you can get a lot of shots in this category. Personally, I don't like to overdo these shots. For me, my bikepacking trips are mostly about the nature, so I try and keep them to a minimum. For getting my macro shots, I have to park my bike, get out my drone and unpack it before setting it up and then launching it. If you've ever flown a drone in public before, chances are you've had someone come up to you at some point who's a bit of a job's worth and thinks you're not allowed to be doing it there. If you've got a license and you know the laws, I usually just ignore these people. But 9 times out of 10, I'll be flying in really quiet locations so I don't get disturbed. For the other shots, I need to set up my camera, which takes a lot longer. It requires setting up the tripod, putting on the mic and the ND filters, and then dialing down the shot. Let me show you what I do. Once I've got everything plugged in, I look at the subject that I'm trying to get. So in this case, it's going to be this leaf. Once I've done that, I try to get it exactly right in the frame, which means adjusting the camera to my liking, and then I dial down the settings. Looking at the shutter speed, it's far too high, so I start to adjust the ND filter to bring it down. I actually have my shutter speed on auto most of the time, which means all I need to do is adjust the ND filter. Once I'm happy with that, I need to get on the bike. I hit record and then have to leg it back to the bike. And once I've got the bike, I have to go back beyond where the camera was, turn around and basically do a flyby. I'm well used to doing these now, but as you can imagine, on some of my longer films, I do this many times. There's a knack to it as well. You've got to get your speed up just right and also not stop too soon because then it'd be obvious in the frame. I then have to dismount, get back to the camera, prop up the bike again and check the footage. And if everything's okay, I don't have to do it again, but there have been times where I've had to redo things several times. The easiest shots to do are action camera shots. You just hit a button and you've got some footage on the bike as you're riding. You don't have to stop, which is ideal. These are great if you use them intermittently, but don't use them for all your shots. Even if I'm doing something basic like setting up camp or making a drink, I have to get the camera ready first if I want to film it, which means I often have to do things twice. I have to go and set up the camera and make sure I'm happy with the shot and the framing before I go back and get the stuff and ride back to that very same position. Again, I've got used to this, but if I'm just setting up camp and I'm really tired, the fact I have to do it twice does often feel incredibly tiring. Once I'm happy with the shot, I then need to pack everything away. I've got really efficient at doing this quickly, but you can still see it takes quite a lot of time. I have to take the camera off the tripod, undo the ND filters, take off the microphone, and pack everything away back into the panniers. Once I've done this, I then need to collapse the tripod properly and attach it to the top of the panniers. This has to be done last because everything needs to be in the bags first before I can strap it on top. Overall, there's quite a lot of work involved, but I do really enjoy it. Let me know your thoughts on that. Hopefully that sheds some light on how much work goes into making these films behind the scenes. And if you're interested in making your own cycling or bikepacking content, maybe looking at growing or starting your own YouTube channel, then I am actually hosting a bikepacking film course at some point in 2026. It'll be in the Peak District in the UK. I haven't decided on a date yet, but if that sounds like something you're interested in, I'll leave a waiting list in the description and in the comments. All you need to do is add some details. There's no commitment at this point, and I'll reach out to you once I've got some more firmer details. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you hopefully in 2026.